Welcome to the basic tutorial for operating Mercury Illustrate FX. Illustrate FX provides the same basic functionality as our Illustrate Pro desktop client without the need to download and install a piece of software to the computer that you're using. FX is accessed entirely from a web browser. So let's get to it. We'll start, of course, by launching a web browser. For this demonstration, we'll be using Apple's Safari, but of course it will work in any browser capable of running Adobe's Flash Player. This application runs entirely in the web browser, so provided that you've installed Flash, there will be no need to download anything else. Now that we've got the web browser launched, it's time to get going. We'll start off by heading over to the Illustrate FX login page, which you can find at ifx.mercury.ca. Once the page loads, we can see that it looks sort of like a simplified version of the login for Illustrate Pro. To actually log into FX, you'll be using your name and passcodes that you would use for your audio conference, which you can find on the welcome kit that you likely received in the mail and by email. We'll go ahead and enter the name and guest passcode. And because you're hosting the meeting, we're going to click the Host button and enter the host or chairperson passcode. Click Begin Conference, and we're off. And now we're inside Illustrate FX application. Probably the first thing you'll notice is, despite offering the same sort of features, FX looks very different from Illustrate Pro. The easiest way to break down the interface is to split it up into different sections. We'll start going left to right because it's good enough for the English language, it's good enough for us. Up here in the very top left corner is a list of all the users who are logged into the call. The list is displayed in alphabetical order, but you'll always be able to find your own name because it's displayed in boldface. Now, as you can see, this list is broken up into 3 columns. The middle is probably the most important. It's a list of the names of the participants in the call, so you actually know who you're talking to. Over on the left here is an indicator for the role of each call participant, whether they are just a standard participant or the moderator of the call. The column all the way over here on the right shows the status of the participant, whether or not they're the presenter. Right below that is a listeners window. In the future, this window will show a list of participants who are actively listening to the call in the audio conference. All the way over on the other side of the screen is the chat interface. If you've ever used an instant messaging application before, you'll probably be familiar with how this particular window works. All you have to do is type to send messages to other people participating in the call. If you click the little plus at the top of the window, you'll be taken to a menu which allows you to create individual chats between specific members, which will be privately shared between the two of you. So here's an interesting situation. Let's say you're in a meeting with a bunch of native English speakers, but you yourself don't write the language too well. FX is prepared for that. If you'll notice up in the menu bar here, there's a drop-down that allows you to change the language for the entire interface, as well as change the language for any incoming and outgoing messages. So let's come down here and click French Canadian. First thing you'll notice is that everything's changed. We've gone from conversation to discussion, and we've changed headings. Of course, we haven't changed the names of people because those are usually the same in any language. More importantly, if we watch over in the chat window, any incoming message will be translated into French so that we can read them in the language we chose. And of course, any messages you send out will be received by the other call participants in whatever language they've selected. Last and probably most important is the presentation window. That, as I'm sure you've guessed, is the big window floating here in the middle. The presentation window is really the heart and soul of the FX interface. It's the feature that makes FX so useful. We'll start with the desktop share. First things first, we go straight up here to the top left window and click this little icon that sort of looks like a window. We get this pop-up that A, tells us desktop share requires Java, and B, whether we'd like to share the entire screen or just a region. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be sharing the entire screen. So we'll go down and click this button, and we'll wait a moment or two while everything processes and the screen share begins. So here we are, actually sharing our desktop with somebody else on the meeting. You'll see, of course, there's a little pop-up window here letting us know that we are sharing our screen. We can just click OK to get rid of that. It won't affect anything in the meeting. Now if we come back over here and check out this monitor type window, we'll see a preview of everything that the other meeting participants are seeing. As we move the cursor around the screen, the little cursor in the monitor moves as well. As long as you have this visible, you'll know what everyone else in the meeting is seeing on your desktop. Let's take a quick break here for a second and see what it looks like from the other side of the desktop share. So here's how desktop share works from the other side of the meeting. Really the only thing we're looking at here is the viewing window, which will automatically appear in the top left corner of the screen. It's very similar to the presenter preview, which we are just seeing on the other screen. Of course, it's bigger because now it's the main focus as opposed to just being a reference. If you look closely, you can see the cursor moving around as well. We can see the window changes and the application switching changes are almost in real time. If we want to see the screen share at a larger size, we can hit this bottom button to maximize the window. If that's still not enough, we can actually display the screen size pixel for pixel at actual resolution and scroll around on it. So that's a basic demonstration of how desktop sharing works. We'll go ahead and end this share now simply by clicking the big stop button and come over here to check out presentation sharing. Presentation share is basically a really simple way to show off PowerPoints, PDFs, or images to people you are meeting with. Of course, that could all be done through the desktop sharing feature, but presentation share provides a cleaner solution with a lot less overhead. The first thing we do is click the Upload Presentation button down at the bottom of this window. Doing that opens Finder on Mac or Explorer on Windows and allows us to choose a document that we wish to upload. For this demonstration, we'll be going to the script from Sofia Coppola's film, Somewhere. Now with our file selected, we hit the Upload button and wait a few moments for FX to upload and process the document. Once that's done, we'll be able to show the document to everybody else on the call. Because this document has multiple pages, 44 in all, we can use a little arrow button along the bottom to flip through each page. This works the same for PowerPoints with multiple slides. Now if we pop open this little panel, we get the whiteboard controls. As you may have guessed, the whiteboard controls turns your document into a makeshift digital whiteboard. By switching between the controls with the whiteboard panel, we're able to change the size and color of the marker tool that we are using, as well as draw circles and rectangles of various sizes. If we pop over to the viewer end of the meeting, we can see that watching the viewing panel is a bit like watching a PowerPoint presentation. The presenter's cursor becomes a laser pointer type dot, which can be useful for both the presenter and the participants of the meeting. And that's really everything important to do with the presentation share. Of course, when your meeting's over, you'll want to be able to log out of IllustrateFX properly. For that, all you have to do is click the Log Out button in the top right corner, and the job is done. And that about sums up the features of IllustrateFX. We'd like to thank you very much for watching and learning, and of course, thank you for using Mercury products.